I think you're struggling to find somebody. And I know that Real Madrid and Barcelona have incredibly engaged fan bases globally, but from a media standpoint, the club that gets the most attention, that gets alongside Manchester United being the other one, is Arsenal. And so if Arsenal are doing really good, that's difficult to gain kind of discussion around when you're doing well isn't as entertaining, as engaging as when things aren't going as well. Being able to laugh at Man United since Sir Alex Ferguson left has been one of the most privileged things as a rival fan that we've been able to enjoy. And all of the content around that and the point where fans are growing their hair out until they win 5 games in a row. Like these things just...
He's in trouble.
He's in trouble. He's going to be donating a lot of hair to charity at the end of when that fund finally comes to an end. But when with Arsenal, because Arsenal have been so good for so many years, even though they've not won anything, that element of the not winning something, and now, of course, when they're so consistent this season and they look such strong favourites for the league.
Facts.
It's basically been like this cultivation of an idea of what can we now get Arsenal fans to engage.
Where can we move the goalpost to now?
Where can we spark the rage bait? Where can we spark the attention? And that has been what it is for this season. It has been, well, they're scoring a lot of set piece. They're not more set piece goals than open play goals, but they are scoring a lot of set piece goals. They are scoring, of course, they have kind of introduced, they did really spawn the long throw things. The PSG game was the first time I really noticed long throws being used as much
Thomas Partey.
For a team like Arsenal. Exactly, Thomas Partey when he's doing that. And so they've kind of been the team that's been labelled as the trendsetters for that, even though other teams have done it for a while, but they've done it as one of the bigger sides more than
look at Brentford
other.
with long throws, as you mentioned it. Big up them as well. Like, it's all about fine margins. You should do that. That's where football's moved to. Like, set pieces are deciding things week in, week out, but it's just us.
I think people get annoyed at the inevitability of Arsenal as well. Like, football's meant to be this unpredictable sport that you can't tell and anything can happen in a game. And it'd be like Arsenal get a corner kick and it's almost feeling like you've got a penalty at times. It's certainly, I remember turning to Charles Watts when we got that penalty. I'm saying it myself. When we got that corner at Burnley, I turned to him like, well, here's the first penalty of the game. And then we went and scored. And it's just like, it's so funny, like, because it's just so inevitable. And it seems to grind people's gears as well. And if there's one thing that it seems that the landscape doesn't like at the moment is Arsenal doing well, because for you to get maximum engagement from Arsenal fans, Arsenal needs to not do well. Exactly. So what can we cultivate to generate engagement? It's, even from an Arsenal point of view, look at, just to kind of go a bit more meta about it, but look at how growing on YouTube, typically back in the day, was done more so during Arsenal's worst years. The biggest growth we saw socially amongst particularly like creators came about when Arsenal were doing badly. Growth has not been as fast when Arsenal across the board, and that goes for myself as well. Growth is not as prevalent when Arsenal are doing well.
People don't care for Arsenal to do well unless you support us.
That's what I mean. And I frankly couldn't care less how fast or slow things grow as long as Arsenal are doing well. So I think from that point of view, it gives you a little bit of a snapshot of the problem the media landscape has when Arsenal do well and the lack of engagement they get from talking positively about Arsenal. And so we have to find something to kind of poke at and poke the bear and get people engaged again.
And I always say, Tom, you're spitting facts. You've echoed everything I and a lot of like my long-term supporters are saying. But I always kind of say that exact thing. I always say, Arsenal fans, I think we keep the light bills on in a lot of media houses. And I think you could say the same with society. But in football, when we know someone's speaking nonsense, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying you don't want to defend the club. There's a sense of pride. But when you know someone's evidently rage baiting, they probably, if you were to ask them away from this tweet, if they really feel like that, they'll probably say something different. We have to learn to ignore, but we don't learn to ignore. These people don't care because at the end of the day, you replying, they look on the back end, like how you and me can go on YouTube analytics. It's just going to show green. It's just going to show click-through rate. And they're just going to be laughing in it, really. So until we learn to ignore it, it's going to keep happening. I guess, as they say, the game kind of is the game in that regard. I want to show you this, because I don't want to forget to ask you this. Obviously, we know there's several injuries. There's 6, and we miss all of them, of course. But there'd be, from what I'm about to ask you, there'd be no fun if I say we need them all back. Of all them players on that list, which one do you think you miss the most or we need the most type of thing?
Well, I think of the 6, it's probably either one of Gyökeres or Havertz for starters, because we need that centre forward. We absolutely need a centre forward. If Gyökeres was fit, because it's only a minor issue, next up for me would be Ødegaard. because I
Yeah.
love Eze. Like, I really want Eze to succeed. I and I still thought that his best role for Arsenal would come off the left-hand side. And a lot of people felt like it was going to be more so through the middle. But I felt as though that the left would give him more space and freedom to work his flair. Whereas in the middle, when Arsenal go up against so many low and mid blocks, that he struggles in those kind of environments in the centre part of the pitch. Whereas Ødegaard is more likely to thrive in those areas and find those cute little passes
He's
and
used to
moments
those
where...
kind of game states.
And yeah, exactly. So I think that after the centre forward is dealt with and we've got our striker back, the next one is Ødegaard. So either one of Kai or Victor, back in the team, Arsenal's level goes up considerably. But I think being able to bring Ødegaard in, perhaps they're moving Eze to the left, although Trossard's a brilliant season so far. I think that for me is the key area, yeah.
It's a dodgy one, Tom, because like I said, we missed them all. You're a bit nervous around injuries, and I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, and I don't know this for a fact. I just think it's the age-old thing, yeah. Like, you're excited about a couple players coming back. Unfortunately, a couple of players go down. We've obviously got the international break, and we hope everyone's wrapped in cotton wool. And naturally, when you've got less players to pick from, there is that risk that the existing players, because obviously we have to field out an 11, like, there's a risk that they're going to get more injuries. I feel sorry for Martinelli because Trossard's obviously the poster boy. I'd reckon he's our best performing attacker at the moment. But those two's futures were subject to speculation. They've done brilliant. Jesus, unfortunately, we're accustomed to not seeing you, but there is a role for you this season. We're going to need everyone. For all of the noise and everything that was said before Noni Madueke even kicked a ball and had his first training session, I think everybody kind of sees that there's a role for him here. So we're going to need you, like, type of thing. Ødegaard, it speaks for itself, kind of what you're saying. And unfortunately, I think if Kai Havertz doesn't get injured in the first game of the season, I don't think Gyökeres gets a muscular injury. He came in with no preseason. Yeah, benefit was you're going to get a run of games, but you ain't been ran into the ground. But it's just one of those things. Like, we're going to need both of them. We ain't got a centre forward. And yes, we have had Marino, and credit to Marino, he's done quite well. I just felt like even against Sunderland, really, in the second half against Burnley, naturally, Marino's game isn't to run in behind, or he doesn't carry that threat. So naturally he drops into midfield. Teams start to venture a bit forward. And I think Gyökeres and to a degree Kai Havertz kind of cripples teams in doing that. We need everyone fit. I'd love to see Jesus in the mix, even if we had him. He's an option up front as well as off the left. So yeah, we just need everyone. You touched on Eze, yeah. And while we're here, we might as well touch on a couple of the summer signings. Like, have you been underwhelmed by Eze? Because I mean this in the most positive way. I give Eze, for me, I think you've been 7 out of 10. I think you could be a lot more. I give you the luxury that it's 11, 12 games in. Obviously, this is a complicated system to learn individually and how it ties into the collective. I think, like you touched on, there's a bit of a low block tax that everybody's going to be against. I think he's realized how to thrive with us against the run of play or when the games are kind of open. But doing the Eze stuff when it's low blocks and mid blocks, I kind of think he struggles, and I feel like the game he struggled the most against for me might be Fulham away. But where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I think that where Arsenal are going to be when these players return and where ultimately Arsenal go to and that next step for Arsenal, a lot of people have talked about like the gaps between winning and losing in these opening games, right? The opening 11 games, the gaps between winning and losing have been maybe tighter than what many have wanted to see. That, drawing at Sunderland, 1-0 against Palace, 2-1 against Newcastle, even some of the 2-goal victories that have been pretty tight, leaving it late in Bilbao and things like this. This is where you start to get more credence around kind of that argument of, are Arsenal convincing enough at this point? Even though we put
They'll tell us that's how you win titles and trophies when other people do it. It's ridiculous.
I know. It is ridiculous. But what these players returning could do and what Arsenal's next step could be is that, and I think you were so spot on when you said about Gyökeres wouldn't have this injury if Havertz was here or Jesus was here. It's so spot on because, and people accuse Arteta of kind of running players into the ground. It's not about running players into the ground at all. It's about trying to maximize your squad in the best way to get the best results. And the thing is, if he brought players off and we started dropping points, he'd be absolutely lambasted for taking them off. But it feels as though it's any which way we can kind of point a finger or kind of undermine Arteta. And I think when he gets these players back, Arsenal could run away with this. Arsenal could really run away with it if they get those players back. And we've already played some really difficult teams. You know, we've gone to Anfield, we've gone to St James's Park, we've gone to Sunderland, which apparently is a tricky place to go. We've gone to Turf Moor now, which I think is going to be another team who takes points off others.
For us,
You know,
Old Trafford, maybe not necessarily Man United.
for us, Old Trafford, absolutely us for us, Old Trafford. Getting that kind of, that monkey off our back, if you will, is really important. And Old Trafford has been that for us for a long time. So I'm really happy with that. And Stamford Bridge is going to be up next, another place where Arsenal have we've had a decent record there of late. But I think, last couple of seasons have we drawn both last time we went there. So I think if we can get a win there as well and win the derby, all of a sudden you're looking very, 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 very comfortable with the games that you've got left. So fingers crossed that happens.
That leads me to ask you, because it's going to sound dumb, because like I'm looking at it now, like we've got Spurs, Bayern Munich, Chelsea away, as you said, Brentford at home, Aston Villa away, Club Brugge in the Champions League, obviously Arsenal versus Wolves on the 13th, and then we've got Everton, Crystal Palace, Villa at home, Brighton at home to kind of close out the year. So I can't sit here and tell you that, not even that I'm nervous, because again, Arsenal have put their best foot forward. Anyone can beat anyone in the Prem and all of those kind of things. So it's not to say, like, because these games will be probably the most sold out games at the Emirates or within Arsenal fans when they're traveling. But I was more like watching the run of games we had ending at Sunderland, because you mentioned it there, Fulham, Newcastle, Palace, fair enough, it's in the League Cup, but Brighton, the quote-unquote bogey teams, like for me, I was more nervous about that. And it's not to say there's not many twists and turns, but we've navigated that bloody brilliant. So how do you feel about this run of games? Because you indirectly said as well, like you would rotate against Bayern. So I took from that in that it is a tough run of games. We obviously do need to go on a winning run, but we're going to have to be cute and clever with the squad, obviously fitness permitting.
Yeah, and I think Villa's another one that they look in really good form now as well. So
just when they're about to play us, typically.
I know, and we play them twice in quite a short period of time. So I think we play them in December twice. I think both our league games against them are in December 6th and December 30th. So that's mad that we have to do that. But again, get Villa Park out of the way. And if you can come away from there, again, like we did last season with a victory, is we're kind of snatch and grab result that last year. Villa were really pushing us, and David Raya had to pull off a couple of mad saves. Paul Trossard and Partey, I think, got the goals that season. So, yeah, look, Arsenal have got, if you can come through Spurs and Chelsea with maximum points, you then host Brentford. If you then go to Villa Park off the back of 3 wins to gain momentum again, you're laughing. You got to go to Bruges, who just drew against Barcelona, so then absolutely no marks to win their own ground. So maybe again, but you can rotate there. You got a home game against Wolves, which has to be a win. Every team is putting however many past Wolves. It does feel like we're playing teams when they get their new managers in place, though, which is a little annoying. But we're still managing to come through it. Everton away is obviously a very interesting one, and if you can then get to a cup semi-final before Christmas, you're laughing. And then you got Brighton at home, and then Villa at home, and then you're into January. So this run of games, if Arsenal was, as I say, I think that people were quite disappointed after the result against Sunderland, and it kind of put a little bit of a dampener, especially because it was the weekend that Liverpool and City were playing each other, so it was guaranteed one would drop points, and we weren't able to maximize that while another one closed the gap. But it was pointed out to me, and everyone should know who score guy is, who is obviously the guy who, whenever Arsenal score at the Emirates and it's at the North Bank end, the camera pans to the corner and he's the guy doing the score in the camera screen. His Twitter account tweeted out something the other day, which I highlighted on my show, and I think was a really good piece of perspective. So, like, before the October international break, Arsenal had a 1-point lead over Liverpool, a 3-point lead over City, and a 5-point lead over Chelsea. Going into the November international break, we had a 4-point lead over City, a 6-point lead over Chelsea, and an 8-point lead over Liverpool. And I think that's the perspective of, like, one international break to the other, and now we go from here to to January. Will those gaps increase further? Can Arsenal widen those gaps more? And can they continue on this trend of just monotonous victories?
And why everyone should calm down a bit, but boy,
indeed.
You can't tell Arsenal fans to calm down, but that's what I mean, because now it's going to sound cringy, but now I think that, as silly as it might sound, now I think the season starts. Like I always say this, from August, I'm only interested in the first 10, 11 games, still having the same ambitions that we obviously had before a ball was kicked, because now you're going to start to see teams in the groove of things. And I feel in the first run of fixtures, that's where momentum and form and all of these kind of things play a part. Like we see teams that quite frankly can't buy a win, keep losing. Someone like Sunderland, like, I'm not saying that they won't overachieve and maybe finish in the highest position they can. But it didn't surprise me the way they played and kind of the way the game kind of panned out, really and truly, if that makes sense. Yeah, go on, Tom. Tom needs to refresh quickly. There's been an audio issue, people, but we'll be there. So yeah, that's that. Obviously, Tom's got to go at 10, people. So I wanted to make sure you lot had your questions, and we're gonna host a couple of questions specific for Tom before we let him go. Question for Tom: you can only pick one, Premier League or Champions League this season. What are you choosing and why?
If it's just one, I'm absolutely just picking the Premier League for me, because if Arsenal don't win the Premier League this season, that for me becomes such a huge story. Like, if Arsenal don't win the Premier League this season, the story that is huge. Even if we win the Champions League, it's like, what on earth happened in the Premier League that we didn't win it?
We're cursed if we don't.
100%. So I think the Premier League I pick. Someone asked me the other day, would I choose a domestic treble or the Champions League? And I was like, well, obviously a domestic treble. And so many people were picking the Champions League. And I was like,
you have to.
Three
Treble,
trophies.
You have to. Yeah,
100%. So yeah, I'm picking the Premier League because we absolutely have to win it this year. Have to win it next year. If you ask me the same question, it's the opposite answer. So
yeah, because we got that monkey off our back.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
For me, I'd still, you make a great point, Tom. You're not lying. Selfishly, I'd go Champions League. I think the wounds of 2006 are still fresh. Like, even when you was talking about the Champions League tie against PSG and you said Paris, like, it did tug at my heartstrings. So, like, rather selfishly, I just need the champs. Like, it's very childish. But I hate when we play teams and they're like, Champions of Europe, you'll never sing that. Like, that just shuts up immediately. But then you are right in that it does become a big story and it's above my pay grade and my knowledge, if I'm honest. But I wouldn't, if we don't win the Prem, I don't know where Arsenal, like whether it's Arteta, the players, Berta, everyone around them, I can't tell you where you go from there. I don't know what's the point of improvements. I don't have a clue. Of course, there's nuances and we can look at points that have been dropped, but I wouldn't know where you would go with that, if I'm honest with you. So, yeah, man. Then you got another question, Tom. Tom, let's avoid the worrying question. What do you think are odds to win the Premier League, FA Cup, or the Prem and Champions League? So I think he's asking individually, all of them.
I think the odds of winning the Premier League we're odds on to win the Premier League this season. Shorter than evens, I'd put us. So, yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. Champions League, it's really hard. Champions League's really hard. I'd say like 3-1, something like that. It's even though I think a lot of people put us shorter than 3-1 because of how good we are. I personally don't, because I just know how unpredictable that tournament is. Like, it's so hard to win it, and one mistake can knock you out of it. That's the problem with cup competitions. One error, one bad performance, and you're out. So, whereas the league, you can afford to drop a ball somewhere and still be okay because you've built up a buffer, as Arsenal have. So, yeah, look, I think our chances of winning the Premier League are much higher than the Champions League just because of the format, basically.
I think you're bang on. We got 2 more questions, Tom. Tom, with the potential introduction of staff, i.e. Berta and now scouting personnel, does Arteta have any pressure to deliver since so many people are being replaced in the club? As in, does Arteta see himself also potentially being replaced if he doesn't deliver this season?
Arteta has never seen himself as irreplaceable at Arsenal. He knows how privileged he is to have the role that he has, and he knows that if he doesn't succeed, then he will move on, and the club will change. We saw that with Unai Emery. Went backwards, regressed, didn't show enough progress. They got rid of him. So with Arteta, I think the pressure has been there since day one. I think the pressure to succeed is there. Just because he doesn't win the league and then doesn't get sacked doesn't mean that there isn't still scrutiny. Doesn't mean that there is any less or any more now that he hasn't. I think that they've been very, very impressed by what he has done in the 5 years that he's been at Arsenal, 6 years that he's going to be at Arsenal. So I think the pressure is always there. Regardless of how much change is going on behind the scenes and with the hierarchy, the pressure's the same, and he has to deliver. And I think that we've reached 2025. By the way, is something that they've been going on about. I know internally for a long time. Edu was going on about it before he left for a long time. 2025 was seen as the year that Arsenal would take things into a new level for many years going ahead, and they actually peaked or reached kind of a peak of competing before they thought they would. 2025, I think they saw maybe as like a year or even maybe 2 years later than what it actually happened to compete as successfully and as efficiently as we do. So, yeah, this year's huge for Arsenal, and it has been for many years. They've viewed this year as being massive.
I think I make you right, and obviously you look at the Napoli guy. We're in talks apparently to go and be obtaining it to work with Berta. You look at what you hear better yet, because I don't know, but you hear what Heinz is doing. We see what Nicholas Hove is doing. We see what the players are doing. We see what the manager's doing, and actually more so for people that go to the grounds, like Arteta and Arsenal actually got mocked for removing the kind of cover in the tunnel. Now you can see the method to the madness. So I make you right. All we need to do now is just win some silverware.
Yeah.
Last question then, Tom. Do you believe we can go on a win streak starting with Spurs, Bayern, and Chelsea, or do you think we might not win all three? I'm gonna say all three, man. F it.
Yeah, F it. Yeah, we're gonna win all three. We're gonna rotate
Bayern might
heavily
be a
against
draw, to be
Bayern.
fair.
We're going to use Bayern as a side to bed in our returning players because we're going to use them for that and still beat them. So yeah, I'm going to go all three.
And I'll answer this question in short. Of course, I'd love to win all 4 trophies. I'd love to stand here and be wrong, Gooner Fans TV, but like to win all 4, we're dream chasing. Let's just try and get one over the line and try and compete. But we do have the numbers, provided everybody's fit to amicably compete in all competitions, man. So we'll have to see.